Hi, this is the last section of our ACD call processing. Here we're going to talk about call routing. An inbound ACD call routing involves an inbound call flow, which is usually basically a script that is configured in Genesys Cloud Architect. In order for you to transfer an inbound call into a particular queue, you would need a range of DID numbers. Now, DID is basically the telephone numbers that you assign for your particular department, maybe the call center, maybe the help desk, or even the customer main telephone number. You'll map the DID number to a specific call flow within your Genesys Architect configurations. The architect settings are then loaded into Genesys Cloud Edge. And as the call coming in, the Edge server will present the appropriate IVR prompt and functionality based on that architect settings. Now, this particular video will cover the basic call routing and inbound call flow configurations. Genesys Cloud implementation course that will teach you how to configure Genesys Cloud Communicate to set up the DID numbers. So if you have subscribed to our e-learning platform, you will have the Genesys Cloud CX implementation self-study kit where I show you how to configure the DID phone numbers. The Genesys Cloud Advanced Architect course will teach you how to configure the more complicated routing and scheduling mechanism. Now let's take a look at what is involved in creating an inbound call flow. So when you create a flow, you'll define a flow name and then a description, and of course the language that you want to use. Followed by, you can import an existing flow that you already might have, where, for example, you can create a copy of that. And as you bring the flow, you will have the settings, where you will then customize based on your needs. Now, obviously, in the call route, there are additional stuffs you can configure, like the regular settings, you get the emergency routing, and then finally a phone number that you want to associate with. So I'll walk you through this process as part of our lab guide of how to configure a call routing for routing an inbound call into a particular queue. Now let's take a look at these interfaces in the actual lab. So when you log into your Genesys Cloud portal, you'll see that you got the routing, call routing, you have the architect where you configure the inbound flow. So let's say if I go to call routing, this is where you will define maybe the flow. So let's say add a call route. You can define a name, divisions, when this call route is open, either it is open all 24/7 or particular base hours, which you haven't configured yet. You can specify a particular flow if one exists. You can define a phone number, inbound call phone number, and all the such settings. In our lab guide, I will show you how to configure this right now, just to show you what the interface currently looks like. Now, if I go back to Architect, so let's say go to Architect and you want to configure, look at what the Architect has to offer. So here you got a couple of other options like data table, flow outcomes. But our Architect, you have an inbound call flow. As you can see, this is a sample one available. You can add a new one. You can create an inbound call flow. Let's call this inbound sales call. And this will be mostly for inbound sales. You can choose a division and create the flow. Once you create the flow, then you can, of course, you'll see all the settings. Here you'll see the version that you're currently working on, whether you need to validate or not, any menu options that you might have, speech recognition, and other couple of settings. Like I said, we will go through this more detail as we go through this course. We have a dedicated section for Architect where we'll show you how to use these features in more in-depth and more advanced concept. All right, so moving on. Now, agent activation, part of the contact center management in workforce management, which include trying to forecast how many agents you need in order to answer your call. Now, obviously, that will depend on your couple of other factors like number of calls, number of lines, volume of calls you're expecting or not. Now, the agent activations allows an agent to be activated or deactivated on a queue without having to change the queue membership. So sometimes you may want to allow 20 users into your queue, but you want to keep 5 of them deactivated so that they only get activated when there is a flow, more agents required. So agent activation feature is very important because shifting agent around on queues by changing the membership may ruin your reporting data. So you simply allow them to be part of a group, and you simply activate them when you need them and deactivate them when you don't need them. You need administrative right to change the membership, but can grant agent the permissions to just activate and deactivate themselves, or give the supervisor privilege to do that. For example, you have too many agents sitting idle on one queue. Meanwhile, another queue might have a lot of calls coming in, and agents on that particular queue may not be able to handle all the calls because there's only too few agents that are available, or maybe some of those agents didn't show up because of weather issue, or I don't know, some sort of transportation issue. In that case, agents who are sitting on other queue might automatically activate them into the second queue where it's experiencing call flow problem to keep answering those calls. Agent with the correct permissions can activate themselves or deactivate. So, for example, you can see which queue that you want to activate yourself. You simply select the queue and press the button activate. If you want to deactivate yourself, you can just simply see that you are currently deactivated for this particular queue, even though you're a member of that queue. Now you can also deactivate by going through those 3 dots from a queue perspective. As you can see, you can activate and deactivate particular agent. Now, web chat, a lot of companies are using social web-based interaction with their customers. Many companies are now and have a web chat as a way for customers to get assistance from a company's website. This ability allows the customers to get help they need and easier and faster, and rather than having to call or email from a separate devices. Genesys Cloud Contact Center has a built-in web chat feature that allows a customer to chat with agent directly from the company's website. An incoming web chat is then routed to appropriate agent through the particular queue. Now, before you can use the web chat, of course, you must create a web chat deployment, which is basically the code that you need to put in on your website. Now, this particular code or script must be copied within the body tag of every pages that you want this chat box to be available. Now, we will look into that, how to configure it, but Genesys does have a developer center where you can get more details about those code. If you want to set up email, ACD email is facilitated by using an email system that is built into Genesys Cloud in order to route incoming email messages through the ACD just like any other call. The email will come into the queue, and then it will go to the agent that is available or meet the requirement. Using the same routing and evaluation method and considering skills, language, priority, agent utilization, you can use those email efficiently to route that email to appropriate individual. Setting up email routing is very simple. You create an email domain in your admin, add the email address to it. Genesys Cloud ACD email domain are in the format of your account.mypurecloud.com. Now, your Genesys Cloud account can have a single email domain with up to 500 associated email addresses. You can assign each email address to a queue and configure it to have associated language, skills, or priority assigned to it. Genesys Cloud ACD will route each incoming messages to a member of that particular queue, not everybody in that queue, not all the member in that queue. Now, to give an example, let's say you create a domain name called voicebootcamp.mypurecloud.com, and you set up an email address as support@voicebootcamp.mypurecloud.com. You may also add another email address as required, such as sales@voicebootcamp.mypurecloud.com. So all of them refer to the organization called VoiceBootcamp. It is also possible to use your organization's email domain name. Now, for that information, there are some additional steps that you need to configure and work with Genesys Cloud to help set up your own organization's domain. Now, to configure email routing, add the email address to which the Genesys Cloud will route the customer's email to. So you would go to the appropriate contact center, email, define your email address. As you can see, the email address is like my pure training, which is the organization is trying to use. And then of course you can assign all the skills and queue name or whatever the details that you need. Again, we will walk you through the step-by-step of configuring this in our lab guide. Configuring basic email routing. In order to configure a very basic email routing, you need an email address, you need a queue, you need the skills, and the priority from 0 to 10. You can select a priority value from 0 to 10, where 10 is the equivalent of 5 star. You also need to define a from name, such as the agent name, department, or organization name that will appear in the email recipient. The email address is now configured and ready to start routing email for that designated queue. Now, if you send an email at, for example, support at voicebootcamp.mypurecloud.com, anybody like from Google or any other organization send an email to that address, Genesys Cloud will route it to your particular queue. ACD messages. ACD message and agent can send and receive interaction from your messaging platform. Genesys Cloud Agent can respond to an inbound SMS, Facebook Messenger, Twitter direct message, or line messaging. Message works similarly to any other interaction type, such as web chat or email. For example, you can send an alert timeout and a service level target for your messages. A report and analytical view will include message metrics. You can use a script with message interaction as well. To set up a SMS messaging, you first need to purchase an SMS number because somebody has a text, send you the text, right? Onto a particular number. Then you configure the message flow in your archetype. To set up a third-party messaging platform, such as Microsoft, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, or Line, you need to set up your social media account and then configure the message flow within your archetype. Again, we will walk you through some of the configuration steps in our lab guide. So in summary, you can see that there's so much that Genesys Cloud ACD processing handles. It handles the calls as that comes into inbound flow, as well as a queue design. It deals with agent utilizations, as managing skills, language skills, ACD skills. It also deals with wrap-up code, which are very important to pretty much any contact center that you probably will work with. After call hours, give the agent an ability to fulfill the previous call, complete the task before they are ready to take new call. Remember that after call work, there are wrap-up code that has 4 different options. You got optional, mandatory, discretionary, mandatory time box, mandatory time box with no early exit. And then after call work, you define the time that is after a certain time, then you must select wrap-up code or not. You can create and configure queues, assign phone numbers and names to the queue. You can assign age members into that particular queue as well. So it's a lot of stuff that you can configure under the ACD configuration of your Genesys Cloud. Hopefully you got a better understanding about the ACD functionality of Genesys Cloud Contact Center platform. In this video, we take a look at our lab where you will learn how to configure that and test it within your environment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.